Okay, everybody, hello and welcome to the Project 19 Link Up Resilience. Before we get started, I'm just going to go over a few technical points about Zoom and the presentation. So we invite you to put Zoom on speaker view for most of the presentation, unless at some point Domi requests you to change it to gallery view. Throughout the presentation, there will be interaction with the chat, so you can make sure that the chat screen is up and you can click on chat on the bottom taskbar. It's, sometimes Zoom is configured differently depending on what device you have, but it's usually a black taskbar on the bottom. And when you bring your cursor onto it, you'll see there's the chat function and then the chat window will pop up. Domi's presentation will be about 40 minutes, give or take, and then we will have a discussion answer period afterwards. So right now when you arrive, you should be muted. If you aren't, just mute yourself, but you do have the power to unmute yourself. So when it comes time for asking a question or participating in a discussion in the latter part of the presentation, just go ahead and unmute yourself. Also, when it comes time for questions, you can use the raise your hand function. So next to chat on that taskbar, you'll see a key that says participants. If you just click on that, you'll see all the participants that are in the meeting. And then in that section, there is the raise your hand function button. So you can press raise your hand to raise your hand, and then you can press it again to lower your hand. So use that as needed when we get to the question and answer section. At the end of the presentation, there'll also be some notes that Domi wants you to have, some links and stuff like that. So we're going to put those in the chat. But if you miss them, don't stress out, no big deal. If you're doing something else or whatever, we're going to send out an email at the end of the presentation that will have that information. So just watch out for that. So without further ado on all that stuff, it is my pleasure to introduce a vibrant, talented free flyer who excels at both doing and leading, Domi Kiger. That's how you say it in French. She just coached me through, but in America we say Domi Kiger. Domi is a sky and tunnel free fly coach, a free fly organizer, and a member of the all-female air sports team, the Joyriders. She has been heavily involved in the creation and development of dynamic flying and is also a member of the IPC's Dynamic Committee. They develop the rules and structure of dynamic competition. She has organized and commentated on many indoor skydiving competitions, her favorite of which was the Sakura Cup in Tokyo. More recently, she has become a co-owner of Zero Gravity, a new wind tunnel in Poitiers, France, which was about to open right before the pandemic hit, but now will be opening soon. She is one of 3 women who have been a free fly world champion in France, or from France. Cathy Bouet and Karine Joly, both of which are regional captains for Project 19, are the 2 others. Domi has competed and placed in countless tunnel competitions, received 2 World Cup or World Championship free fly gold medals, as well as a bronze in speed, and 12 National Championship or French Cup medals. She has been on 8 national or European records and 6 world records. She organizes the European selections for the vertical world records and is a co-organizer of the French vertical record and the women's European record and of Project 19. Even with all those amazing achievements, Domi is no stranger to overcoming setbacks. In 2010, Domi broke her back in a skydiving incident, but came back even stronger to win the World Cup in 2011 and the World Championships in 2012. In 2016, she lost her partner, and she has been learning how to cope with loss ever since. After 2 years of work on the project to open a wind tunnel in Bordeaux, France, the project actually failed. But once again, she overcame and is about to realize her dream with this year's opening of her tunnel, Zero Gravity, next to the Futuroscope in Poitiers, France. Domi has been using this downtime in the pandemic to work on her public speaking. So now let us be her audience as she talks to us about the ever important topic that affects us all in so many aspects of our lives, resilience.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for this humbling introduction. And thanks to all of you for showing up today. All right, let's dive into it. Amy, could you share slide 1, please? Thank you. So there's many definitions about resilience out there, but my favorite one came from Viktor E. Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, which is going to go into the little bibliography we'll send you after this talk. And he qualifies it as the human capacity to creatively transcend life's negative aspects into something positive and constructive. Transcend life's negative aspect into something positive and constructive. So this sculpture, looking a little strange here, is called Resilience. It's located in Brisbane in Australia, and it was erected to honor the fight of Queensland men and women for women's suffrage over there. I thought it was an interesting collusion, the theme of resilience, the name of this sculpture, what it represents, and what we're trying to achieve here with Project 19, a skydiving record to celebrate women's right to vote in the States. It took resilience indeed to change the status quo and allow women's voice to count politically. Now, more than ever, it's going to take resilience for us not only to achieve the big goal we've set to ourselves, break a world record and not a small one, but also to come out of this COVID-19 crisis. Us being here right now, online together, is an act of resilience. We were on a mission and everything changed. Camps got canceled, the record got pushed back. We were deprived from the pleasure of each other's presence, of those intense moments of friendship and self-improvement that contributes to making our life so special. Yet, COVID-19 is not destroying Project 19. It's not destroying us. Within days, the organizing team came up with a contingency plan. Link Up was created, resources allocated to it, speakers pulled from our network, to create content that would actually make Project 19, if anything, more achievable. A system that was never put in place before because we could see each other in person, because we were always so busy. It is now proving a very valuable tool of progression, so much so that we decided to keep it in place, even if we don't have to deal with the world pandemic every time we try to break a record. So this crisis is a practical exercise in resilience, and we're doing really good so far. So developing resilience is going to help us achieve Project 19, but it's also a process that can change your life, whether in your relationships, in your work, to cope better with any kind of change. To walk this earth knowing that whatever happened, you'll be okay. You might even be better for it. This is a topic close to my heart. 4 years ago, when my partner, Dave Reeder, died, not believing in God personally or in an afterlife, I decided to turn to science, and particularly to psychology. I had the instinctive feeling that what I personally needed to survive this shattering of my world was in the human mind. So I dove deep into the science of post-traumatic growth and resilience, and eventually I found in me the resources I needed to get by. So my goal today is to inspire you to realize that you also have what it takes to go through this, to go through anything. I wish you to leave this webinar feeling that forces beyond your control can take away everything but one thing: your ability and freedom to choose how you will respond to the situation. Resilience is a process. It's not a skill you were born with or not. Our ability to develop it is highly influenced by our personal story and circumstances. So Don't beat yourself up if you feel like you're not always nailing those things we'll talk about or struggling to put them in place. Some days will be harder than others, and that's okay. Above all else, to quote somebody we all love and respect here, be kind to yourself. So this talk is going to have two phases, basically before shit hit the fan, after shit hit the fan. Pardon my French. In the first part, we'll look into resilience factors, what I'm going to call during this presentation the building blocks of resilience, what's going to help you be more resilient. Knowing and understanding those building blocks is wonderfully empowering because you have the ability to act on those right now. Because resilience is something we can all develop and grow. So I'm going to go over those building blocks with you, but I'm going to add a little twist. Now, those of you who've known me for a long time probably noticed that I never go anywhere without a notebook and fancy fountain pen. Guilty pleasure. Over the last few years, though, I've started to add a little more structure to it when I stumbled upon a book describing what a bullet journal was. Bujo, in short, or if you're an Instagrammer. It's a wonderful tool to log and keep track of your health, your mood, your intentions, your life in general. You can use it as an agenda. What I really like about the concept is how flexible and adaptable it is to your own needs and interests. So I really invite you to consider creating one for yourself. I strongly believe that putting things on paper, it helps you face the reality of some of your habits and behavior and thoughts, and it helps you change them or increase them depending on what you want and what you need. In other words, it helps you be honest with yourself and take control. For example, if you think yourself as a social drinker, it could be beneficial to actually try to track how much you consume alcohol, to know exactly how much you drink, to help you understand better the when and why, maybe. So you have an honest picture, and then you can make an educated decision about whether or not you need to change something. So for many of the building blocks I'm about to share with you, I'll have a Bujo hot tip on how to practically do something about it through writing. And I'll sometimes share with you a page from my own practice. All right, here we go. First building block of resilience. Take care of your body. That probably sounds obvious, but I can't stress this enough. Feeling good and healthy has a major impact on how strong and healthy you'll be mentally. It makes a huge difference on how you'll be able to handle a hit. So there's basically four main elements to feeling good in your own skin, right? Nutrition, what you eat, exercise, how much you move your body, stress management, and sleep. I'm sure you're all familiar with nutrition, exercise, stress reduction. By the way, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend that you check out Mrs. Link Up about breath, because it's a wonderful way to deal with stress. Those are three fields where you can easily start logging things into a bullet journal to get a clear picture of where you are and improve where you wish to do so. From logging your water intake or your workouts or how many minutes of meditation you've done today. Find a system that works for you and use it to your advantage. Here I'm going to choose to focus on sleep, for it's been one of the most transformational change I've had in my life in recent years. So we're going to do a little experimentation here. Who amongst you sleep at least 8 hours every night? Either raise your hand or write a proud me in the chat box. Let's see. There's a few hands. I'm proud. I'm proud. Yay. Yeah, Rosie. Yep. All right. So mixed response here. Don't worry if you're not. You're part of the majority. It is really difficult to actually get 8 hours sleep every night. Even though our moms told us how important sleep was, we all have the very sneaky tendency of putting sleep at the very bottom of our priority list. In addition to that, within a little skydiving bubble, you're not likely to get the most street cred for being known as the one who go to bed early. I've been massively guilty of this in my load organizing career, priding myself in being the last one to bed, raging all night, and then getting up early and rage all day. Obviously, the younger you are, the more you'll get away with it. But whatever your age is, let me put my fun police hat on and tell you what I would have hated to hear 10 years ago. Sleep deprivation has real nasty consequences on your health, your mood, your ability to learn anything. And if we focus on skydiving, also your safety and those of others. It definitely has a massive impact on your ability to be resilient. If you want to educate and traumatize yourself a little more on this topic, I strongly suggest that you read a book called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. If you don't have time or don't feel like reading the whole book, he did a really good podcast with Joe Rogan. We'll send you the link for both the podcast and the book. Spoiler alert, sleep is crucial and you need at least 8 hours of it every night. Sorry. All right, so what I'm sharing with you right now is going to be 2 pages of my own practice for my bullet journal. So this first picture, it's one of my week log from Fly last year. On the left part, the part that are grayed is when I sleep, so when I go to bed, when I wake up. And then on the right page, you can see in one of those little squares is actually the amount of hours I slept. That was not really a good week of sleeping. So when I started, I didn't really try to change anything. I just wanted to have a picture of what I was doing. Just decided to establish an honest picture of that. And I wanted, after I realized how poor my sleeping habits were, that I wanted to change something. So if we move to this week, for example, the next slide, Amy, please, I'm doing much better. Didn't sleep enough last night. I woke up at 6 with my head full of this webinar, so not nailing it today especially, but the previous days were pretty okay. So it helps me with this visual thing. I can, not only do I know how many hours a night I sleep, so that's a number that's easy to make sense of, but also I have a visual drawing on the regularity of when I go to bed and when I get up. So logging, wanting to be good and write down something that I would be proud of, it really helped me pay attention to my sleep and make a conscious effort to switch it up. I cannot insist enough on how important sleep is to your health in general and how valuable a tool it is to build your ability to cope and endure. Second building block of resilience. Train yourself to face and accept reality. Who amongst you have never lost a loved one, never lost a job, suffered from injury or mental illness, or went through a difficult divorce or a hard heartbreak? If none of those things have ever happened to you, please write the word never in the chat. Yeah, so either nobody's listening to me or it's not a thing. You need to make sure that deep down that tough times come to everyone. So if you can understand that, you won't feel discriminated against when it comes for you. Dwelling on how unfair a situation is not only is pretty useless, but it's also not true. Unfair is how different your life will be depending on whether you're born into an educated and caring family in America or a starving family in Bangladesh. That's pretty unfair. If anything, grief, loss, trauma is something that strikes equally across social and geographical borders. Now, don't get me wrong. When Dave died, my head was screaming how unfair it was. Felt like I really did not deserve this. And that was correct. I didn't deserve it. But suffering isn't about deserving. Unfortunately, it is simply and quite horribly something that happens to us all, one way or another, sooner or later. And if you've already spent some time thinking about that beforehand, it won't lessen the pain, but it will make you more able to fight that impulse of feeling like a victim, feeling that something unfair is happening to you, and it will put you in the driver's seat. One sentence I've heard recently is, don't lose what you have to what you have lost. How true is that? I've experienced that in a very casual way, actually, in 2013, when somebody stole a backpack of mine, and in this backpack was my skydiving logbook. I was really upset. That was all my memory from skydiving, all the I like writing, so I was really, really annoyed. And I was so annoyed that for months after that, I didn't log. Like, the thought of getting another logbook was annoying me. I didn't want to think about it. But then it hit me. That person who stole my backpack, like, he was responsible for all those written memory to be gone, but I was the one responsible for not keep on going. So I got another logbook, and now I have all my skydiving memories since Funny Farm 2014, and I'm pretty happy about that. In a more dramatic setting, losing Dave made me feel at first that I could never love again. I did not want to. I didn't feel capable of it. But at 31 at the time, it would have been very sad if that was true. I have loved again. So you shouldn't lose what you have to what you have lost. Another sentence. What you can't avoid, welcome it with open arms. I came across this sentence years ago. I might have been 20. When I first read it, my gut reaction was to think, well, that's bullshit. Why would I want to do that? But eventually it grew on me. It doesn't mean you have to be happy about everything that's happening to you. It means that acceptance of a situation and willingness to work with it instead of against it is quite simply the only thing you can do. Fighting what cannot be changed is a waste of time and energy. You might as well use that time and energy to deal with the situation. To accept also means allowing yourself to feel whatever that you're feeling. To scream, to shout, to cry if you need to. If you get into the habit of acknowledging and expressing your emotion, hopefully with kindness and honesty, it'll become your go-to, and it will prove a very useful tool when a crisis arises. I used to do that a lot in my early months of grief. I was such a crier. I cried a lot. I cried in a lot of bathroom stalls. As an example, 3 months after Dave passed away, I was at Fly Spot for the World Cup in Warsaw, competing in dynamic two-way with Katie. And I spent so much time in the restroom at Fly Spot, crying my eyes out. But eventually I had to go out and fly my rounds. I don't think I could have done it without the release of crying, acknowledging my emotion, my sadness, and letting it run its course. It allowed me to find the strength to go compete and fly. Another wonderful way to acknowledge your emotions is journaling. You might be surprised at what comes out of your pen. Taking a few moments to reflect and put down on paper how you feel will help you process your feeling. It will increase your self-awareness, and it will help you understand yourself better. If you're being honest, it will help you face and accept reality. Third building block of resilience, and that's an important one. Have a strong network. Being part of a community, having strong ties to other human beings, strong connection is an extremely powerful factor. Ask yourself, who are my people? Am I actively cultivating my relationships, my family, with my friends? One thing you can do in your bullet journal is tracking how often you call your parents or your children's or a dear friend. You can make a list of all the people you'll have in your dream commune. Writing down lists usually makes us realize things that only float in the back of our head most of the time. Your network will ultimately make a world of difference when you're confronted with a difficult situation. It's made a world of difference to me when they've died. My family and my close friends dropped everything they were doing to fly to me, to be physically with me in what was by far the most hollow, horrible days of my life. I felt completely empty, completely dead inside, with no hope, nothing to look forward to. Yet, even in those terrible days, their love fed me. They made me laugh. They made me feel loved and cared for and supported. They helped me logistically, physically, and mostly emotionally. They helped me not feel alone. I was, am, and always will be immensely grateful for them and what they did, for the kind word of support or the tough love when I needed it, and the hope that life was still worth living. What would have happened of me if I didn't have this support system? I will never know, but I'm glad I don't have to. But my point is this: cultivate your relationships. Call, take the time, make the effort, show up, forgive, care. Not only is life way more fun when you have rich relationships, but who knows, one day it might very well save your life. Now, I'd like you to take a few seconds right now to get off speaker mode and go to gallery mode, the mode that allows you to see everybody else's faces. Take a look at all the faces on the screen. Go to page 2, page 3, get crazy. Look at each other. Do you realize how strong we are together? Do you realize what an incredible team we have? Whether it's part of Project 19 or this weird, dysfunctional family we call skydiving, we are strong together. I started this talk telling you that us showing up today was in itself an act of resilience. The whole Link Up project is part of it. Connecting, even when we cannot be physically together, showing up for each other, getting inspired and motivated by one another is a factor of resilience. So good job, you're already doing it. Fourth building block of resilience: master self-talk. Self-confidence is a very important element when looking into what makes us more likely to cope well with trauma. Now, there are many elements getting into play for self-confidence, many out of our control, like where and how we were raised. But there's one thing you can do. It is being mindful and in control of the way you talk to yourself. You know that little voice inside your head? It can make you or break you. The good news is you can learn how to use it to your advantage. Before we go further into this, humor me. Could you share with us one or two words top that comes into your mind, the first couple words that comes into your mind when you think about yourself? I know it's a bit of a brave thing to put out there, but help me out here. Just one word or two words that you tend to think of yourself about. Right. Strong and sensitive, direct, weak, smart, problem solver, stubborn. Strong and not strong. That's so fucking true, isn't it? Thank you. Thank you girls for sharing that. I know that's very personal, and I appreciate your willingness to be vulnerable on here. So there's words of encouragement in there. There's some critics of one's own. Always strive to talk to yourself with kindness and positivity. If you're struggling about something, if you're not nailing it at something, acknowledge it. Don't beat yourself up, and think about what are the small steps you could take to improve, to get better. If you're doing something good, congratulate yourself. Pat on the back. A good rule of thumb is talk to yourself the way you would talk to someone you love. Something you can do in your bullet journal is write down a couple mantras on one page, things that apply to you directly, things that you'd like to convince yourself of, or that you'd like to hammer home. Get creative, make it pretty, or keep it simple, just write the words, but give them a physical reality. Like let them go through your brain, to your arm, through your hand, to the paper, make them real. It will help you assimilate it. Another important thing you can do is introducing the simple question: is what I am doing helping or harming me? Is it helping or is it harming me? Whether it is your reaction to something that's happening or deciding if you should have this 5th glass of wine, no judgments, looking at things, your action and your thoughts through this prism, through these questions, it will help you adapt your behavior to better serve you. And finally, cultivate gratefulness. Focusing on the good has been shown by science to be a very powerful strategy. In 2005, Martin Seligman and his team conducted an experiment where they asked a bunch of subjects to write down every single day 3 things they were grateful for during that day. And what they found after 6 months of the study was that people ended up with higher level of gratitude, higher level of happiness, and less depression. So make an intentional, deliberate, and ongoing effort to tune into what's good in your world. As far as your bullet journal is concerned, there's plenty of examples online of how you can log gratitude in a cute way. Amy, could you share slide number 9 with us, please? Yeah, so I just found that online. Like my way isn't very pretty. I just, at the bottom of each day on my agenda, have a little space left because 24 hours doesn't fill up my page, and that's why I write my gratitude for the day. But as you can see, there's plenty cute way of doing it. So you can get creative. All right, take care of your body. Train yourself to face and accept reality. Have a strong network and master self-talk. Now that we looked into how we can prepare ourselves, make ourselves as ready as can be for a hit, let's focus on how to deal with the hit after it has happened. This is the second part of this talk, and it's about finding meaning. For me, and not just for me, the science concur, one of the most important things, the thing that gave me the strength to go through the ordeal of grief, was to find meaning. Actually, to create meaning. We mentioned earlier that hardships comes to everyone, usually when you expect it the least. 4 years ago, I was on top of the world. My life was exactly how I wanted to be. My career was going great. I was surrounded by phenomenal friends. I was healthy. But what really made me feel on top of the world at that precise moment was that I finally found love beyond anything I thought was possible. After years of not really nailing it in this department, with a seriously long strike of mistakes on my part, I had found what I've been longing for: a balanced, healthy, honest relationship with someone that was perfect for me, someone I admired, respected, someone that made me laugh, that aligned with my values and desire, the kind of partner that makes you feel like life is going to be the most amazing adventure. I was ridiculously happy. And then he died. One morning, he was sending me a text saying, literally, I look forward to every second of life with you. And that night, I was spending alone in a hospital room with him, holding his still warm hand while his brain has already checked out, waiting for his family and my friends to arrive so we can say goodbye and then plug in. That day, all I wanted to do was die. But survival instinct is strong. And it was also pretty obvious to me that I did not want to put anyone who loved me through the horror I was experiencing. So even without much conviction at first, I decided I could not die. So I had to live. I just had to figure out how. That's when the question of meaning became essential to me. Sure, you've all heard that sentence, everything happened for a reason. I hate that sentence. People who said that to me in the early stages of my grief, I just wanted to punch them in the face. Really, really disliked it. Did Dave's death happen for a reason? Yes, it did. He was doing something really dangerous. He made a mistake. He died. He didn't just drop dead. He threw himself off a cliff with a wingsuit. He messed up his line. But me having to deal with his death, did that happen for a reason? Did Dave or the universe decided that I needed an upgrade, that dealing with the death of somebody I loved would be a great test of character? Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think Dave's death happened so I can learn a lesson. But it doesn't mean I cannot learn one anyway. Just like COVID-19 did not happen so we can learn a lesson. But again, it doesn't mean we can't learn something from the situation. So how do we find meaning? It starts by asking yourself one question. My question was, how can I transcend this experience? It came quite instinctively to me at the time, sort of a survival reflex. I needed to transcend that experience. I needed to create meaning. I needed to make the suffering meaningful somehow. It could not be for nothing. So without really realizing what I was doing, I asked myself how I could transcend that experience. And don't get me wrong, it did not lessen the pain at all. But it made the pain serve a purpose instead of simply eating at my heart. It meant making sure that the suffering would not be in vain. So the next slide I'm about to share with you is very personal. I came to call it my endless pool of strengths. And the reason I'm sharing it with you is because I'm hoping it will help you find yours. A few days after Dave passed away, most of my thoughts were dedicated to being very sad and very pissed off. One of the reasons I was so pissed off was that Dave helped me become a better version of myself, and he was not going to be there to benefit from it. As I mentioned earlier, I had massively cooked it in my relationships. I also let myself go a little on the health side of things, but he had inspired me and helped me to better myself. His drive and ambition felt equal to mine. His discipline pushed me to take better care of myself. And most importantly, his forgiveness about my past mistake with him or others, that forgiveness had allowed me to forgive myself and move forward to a much better emotional place. That was one of the biggest things anybody has ever done for me. I was happy and at peace with myself. So when he died, not only did I feel the pain of losing my love, but I was also losing a bright and exciting future. And I fear I could be losing who I had become with his help. That's when my friend Alex MR sent me this text. And I quote and translate it because he sent it in French originally. He said, "From my outside point of view, Dave gave you a wonderful gift by helping you transform over the past few months. You will have to honor him and keep following that path." At the time, it felt a little harsh because all I wanted to do was cry and feel sorry for myself, and I wanted other people to be sorry for me as well. I didn't want them to tell me to get my shit together, but it struck a chord. And shortly after, I wrote this in my notebook, and that's what I want to share with you now, slide number 11. I called it How to Be Worthy of Dave for the Rest of My Life. Always be honest. Never lie. Express myself clearly and simply. Never play game. Don't say things I don't mean. Mean what I say. Take care of my body. Exercise. Be healthy as much as possible. Don't get fat. Stay beautiful in my own way. Dream big and go after my dreams. Identify my ambitions and actually work hard to make them happen. Learn constantly about as many things as possible. Languages, at least 4, practical things and intellectual things. have my shit together, keep my business in order, day-to-day life sorted, and finally, keep a journal. That, for me, which I wrote maybe a week after his death, was the quintessence of what I had learned by his side, how I had changed or improved, or what was already important to me, but that this crisis had somehow crystallized as a core value. It was my commitment to myself to not let his death take away the woman I had become and stay that person that he could have loved for many more years. I definitely have not always been honest in my relationships in the past, something I was really ashamed of and was struggling to move past. It helped me with that. And after him, I stayed true to my words of honesty, even if it meant uncomfortable conversation or situation sometimes. I'm for sure a better partner to Will today than I've been to many other men in my life before Dave because of this improvement. I take much better care of my body, feeling strong and healthy these days. I kept on dreaming big, whether it was teaming up with the Joyriders or to my partner at Zero Gravity and getting this flying machine off the ground. Also pushing myself now, writing or trying speaking professionally. I kept on learning constantly, and I'm pretty happy with how it makes me feel and the kind of people it attracts to my life. I only speak 3 languages though, so I'm slacking on number 4. Hopefully have many more years of life ahead of me and I can tackle that at some point. The funny thing is that notebook was stored somewhere with others for a long time, and I only discovered it a few months ago when I moved all my stuff from Paris to Poitiers for Zero Gravity. But when I read it, I was very moved. I cried actually to realize that those guidelines had actually led me strongly over the past 4 years. Writing them down with such strong intention, associated with such strong feelings, it has really burned it in my brain. So I asked myself how I could transcend that painful experience, and that's pretty much what I came up with. Now, I would like you to take a moment to ask yourself how you could apply that question to a difficult experience in your own life. It could be this COVID crisis we're going through together right now, or anything else that happened to you. How will you find meaning? What good will you create from your suffering? It's obviously a big question. You don't have to answer it right now, but think about it, let it think. Maybe write about it in a journal, because it is a very important question indeed. So we looked into what we could do in our everyday life to build strengths and prepare ourselves for crisis. We looked into how we can deal with it after it's happened through creating meaning. What I want you to never forget is that you have what it takes to handle life's blow. Utilize the hardships, turn them into strengths. Remember what it was like to struggle and still come up on the other side. So when a situation or an obstacle arises, during the record itself, for example, you can draw on previous experience. We know that adversity strikes each and every one of us. The impact may vary. We may go years between any major crisis, but at one point or another, something is going to try to knock us down. And we won't let it. Because as human beings, we aspire to meaningfulness, we aspire to happiness, we aspire to greatness. But it is worth it. You got this. Thank you.
Wow.
All right, so I know I hit you with some pretty heavy bombs here, but if there's anything you would like to share with us, maybe your own resilience story, something you've learned, or if you have any question, please feel free to ask. either write it in the chat or raise a hand and unmute yourself. Thanks, Sarah, for sharing this.
So remember that, oh, go ahead, Shani.
Oh, I just want to say thank you. That's really personal, and I'm sure. Thank you.
Domi, I don't know if you could hear Shani because she was cutting out a little bit, but she said that it was deeply personal and she's really appreciates it and is thankful to you.
Thank you. You would know. You know what I'm talking about. All right then. Well, I guess thank you everyone for showing up and being part of this. I hope you will find little bits and pieces in there that can help you when you'll need it. Because again, unfortunately, we all need it at some point.
And if anybody doesn't remember how to use the raise your hand function, remember you press on participants and then you can raise your hand. So if you have any last questions for Domi, or you just want to say something to the group like Shani did, now's your chance.
I got something. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Amy.
Hello. Domi, it really, I liked when you were talking about when shit happens, does it happen for a reason? There are a lot of people in my life that say that, and they believe that, and I think it's a coping method for some people that really works, something to believe in. When this whole started, that's what my father said to me, like, it all happens for a reason. And I was like, I don't think so, but he's not the person you can easily, disagree with. So, but I was like, but maybe it's possible. I'm agnostic in that sense. It's possible, but you're right. It doesn't matter, because you can, regardless of if it is for a reason or it's not, it doesn't matter. You can learn something. As much as things suck, there's an opportunity to learn something, and then there lies the choice, which I think is beautiful. It doesn't matter. Then it might not happen. Generally, it won't overnight. It could take a long time, but it's just a good mindful place. It's a good state of mind to be in. That what do I take away from this?
Make the best of it.
Yeah, I thought that was a great point too. And we've actually got a question from Alicia.
Hey, so I have a question for Domi. You said you have 3 languages, so I wanted to know what those 3 languages are and what you think the 4th will be.
I also have French and English. My Spanish, maybe I'm being a bit over to claim it. Like, I speak it decently. I can read it perfect. I speak it maybe like a 12-year-old. Nah, let's face it, 6-year-old. So 2 and 3/4. I need to brush up my Spanish. And I have no idea for the 4th one. I think maybe somewhere I end up living. I think that's the only way really to learn a language.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. That could be so many different places. I'd like it to be not a European language though, because I already have 3 of those. So something else.
Thank you for answering.
You're welcome.
And we've got another question from Kim Vanderhorst. Oh, I saw you just lowered your hand. Do you still have a question, Kim?
Yeah, well, it's maybe not really a question, but I do feel that the responsibility for a network, I think, comes from both sides. And I think, for example, at the moment, what's happening in the world, I think a lot of groups and people need network, even if we're further removed from people. So I would always sort of try and sort of rally everybody to sort of be a network, even if people are not in your inner circle, and sort of use your experiences to also have that more sensitivity and compassion to other people, and just stand up as a network, even if somebody is not maybe your direct person to sort of have their backs. I feel that the network thing is a two-way story, as in, like, we need to have our heads on a swivel also for people that might fall through the cracks, because for various reasons they have not that bubbly personality that they, you know, like, attract all that love. Maybe that's because they actually need more love from us. And I feel we're so lucky with our community that we could sort of have that extend a little bit to, I don't know, where we think it might be needed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like the standpoint in this talk was how as individual, what can we do to increase that? So for sure, for you to get that network, you need to reach out for it. And I get what you're saying. It's very easy to just have this closed circle and then let all those people on the side. It's not an easy thing to do, because sometimes you don't even notice. So yeah, maybe take an extra effort into seeing everyone.
And obviously not when you're, you know, when you're hit and you're burning down to the ground, like, but
yeah, no, you probably won't do that. You're very self-centered in times like that. Yeah, you're selfish.
No.
Domi, we've got another question from Weed, who's listed on the screen as Paul Cooper because she's on his account, but it's actually Weed. Hi, Weed.
Hey, Weed. I love you, Weed.
Hi. Mine's a bit probably deep, because you went into, obviously, Dave's death that made you dig deep and become a different person, and he'd made you a better person, you feel, because he sent you down a route and started making you look differently. But would you have dug, what is a strange thing, because obviously his death was not good, but it's almost like saying that you had that opportunity because of that. But then lots of people don't have the opportunity, because nobody wants that in their lives. But it confuses me, because it feels like some of the people I know who I'm very impressed with, or, you know, they've had those things happen. But a lot of people don't have such terrible things happen in their life. I mean, eventually they will. So how do you dig deep when you haven't had that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, you know, it does make sense. And that's, you know, I think it's the same concept that you learn through doing somehow. Like, let's say your parents keep trying to tell you to behave a certain way and you really don't care. And then eventually you learn the hard way, you know, that concept of learning the hard way. I think that's something very human. Now, that being said, I don't think you need to have your partner dying to become a deep person or to have meaning in your life. So don't go out there and kill your partners, people. Like, that's not on me. I think there's many other ways to learn that. Like, I would say my other way is, I guess it's reaching out. So it can either be through people around you, listening to stories, hearing their stories. It makes you realize that you would like to do that. You know, like and in our community, unfortunately, we're faced with death regularly. And every time it happens, we have this surge in being into, realize life is short, hug your people, you know, that. But I think you can also get this from reading. I get this from books. I guess it's the same thing. Instead of having a friend telling you a story, you're reading the story of somebody else. Like, so many books on this planet telling so many different stories, you can be familiar with those concepts, whether it's a self-help book or a very great literature. So there are many ways. And I think the main thing is your intentions. Do you have a growth mindset? Are you trying to better yourself, or do you not care? If you have a growth mindset, you can learn through many different ways. Usually the hard way is what's going to make you learn the quickest and the most intensely. But I believe you can achieve similar results, the same results, maybe in a longer time and in a softer way. And please, I hope for everyone to learn the soft way. The hard way isn't fun at all. You can also learn the soft way, I think.
Can I tell a little stupid story, which is, if you don't mind, if it's time?
Yes, please.
Time?
Go for it.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Hello? No, sorry.
We can hear you.
Can I tell a little story?
Yes.
When I started skydiving, I obviously started very late. And I went to Imperial Brava. I had traveled by myself before. I got a hire car. In those days, I didn't realize, but the hire car was in the middle of Barcelona. I'd never been there. I couldn't find it. I got in a car that was in semi-automatic. I didn't know how to drive it. It was in first gear, apparently, the whole way up the motorway. I didn't have a phone. I couldn't find my way to Imperial Brava. I was on a roundabout going the wrong way round. I was going to get out. And I thought, well, I'm going to jump out of a plane. I'd already done a tandem. And I remember at that moment in time with all these queues of just traffic coming the wrong way on a roundabout in Spain. And I also had another moment in time when I thought I was lost, and I decided that a coach would be going to the motorway. So I followed a coach, but it was actually going to the harbour in Barcelona. So it didn't help me very much. But it was very stupid because when I was sitting in this little baby car on the wrong side of the roundabout with all the cars going round, I was going to jump out and cry. And I thought to myself, I've jumped out of a plane, I can deal with this. And that was my moment when I went to do my course in Spain. And I know it has no relevance to the trials and tribulations you've gone through, but that's my little story that jumping does for me.
Thank you.
I don't know, it's stupid, but it was that moment. So
Thanks. I think we've all felt that way on roundabouts before. Guys, we're coming up on the hour. We're just about done with time, but we've got one final question from Rosie Vanning. Rosie, go ahead.
Hi, Domi.
Hey, Rosie.
I don't think my camera's working, unfortunately. But yeah, you mentioned about like trying not to feel like a victim when things happen to you. I was just wondering, like, where do you draw the line between self-compassion and self-pity? That's my question.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And also, I realize now that you're putting it this way, that sometimes you are a victim. Like if somebody did something to you, you are indeed a victim and you're completely entitled to feel that way. So I hope I didn't come across as saying that this is never a thing, because it definitely is a thing sometimes. It was not my case, but you can be a victim, unfortunately, like Catalina just shared with us. But the line between self-compassion and self-pity is not an easy one. If you're lucky like me, you have an Anna Moxness in your life and she'll tell it straight to your face. So hopefully you have one of those friends around. But I guess it always comes to checking in with yourself and trying to be honest with yourself. If you keep repeating nasty stuff to you, you're probably on an unhealthy trend. If you feel like it's everybody's fault but yours, and that everybody's against you, and like that's also probably not a healthy way of thinking. So it's finding this balance, and it's not easy. I would say check in regularly with yourself, and hopefully you have people around you who can help you see the difference. Because it is a fine line between the two, that's for sure.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, thanks so much for coming to this link up. I'm going to unmute everybody, and the conversation might go a bit crazy, but let's just do it.
Thank you, Domi.
Thanks,
Thank
Domi.
you guys for showing up. Thank you so much. It's really cool to see all your faces.
Thank you.
Thanks, Domi.
Thank you.
Getting in.
Thank you.
Thank you to all the organizers.
Yes.
What is that?
Thank you, Domi.
Are you taking all my Spanish? Is that what's going on?
So everybody, we don't have any other link ups on the schedule, but Sarah and I, we got to get working on that, Sarah. We've been working hard on a visualization app for everybody. So we're fired up to release that hopefully in a month. It's going to be dope, but stay tuned for more link ups. We got to schedule some more. Domi, we fucking love you. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Love all you guys. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.
Des cœurs, des trucs comme ça.
Cheers, Domi.
Love you.
Bye, Domi.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Domi.
Thank you, Domi.
Bye, Domi.
Bye, thank you.
Can't hang up.
Bye.
I don't do hang ups.